How long were you and my dad married for?
On paper, 10 years.
But not on paper.
Well, there was about 3 happy years, I would say. And then once I got pregnant, about 6 months down the road, things kind of took a dive. I'm not sure whether it was, he was scared, he couldn't handle it, but his true colors started to come out. And he just got harder and harder to deal with. He had anger management issues. Fortunately, the physical violence was more directed at inanimate objects, never at me. And so that was good. But the anger part and the constant berating of everything in the world, it got to be extremely stressful and very hard to take. And with all that negativity, it just got to be almost impossible to be around him. But I was pregnant. So I kind of didn't have anywhere to go with that, and he'd have his moments of clarity and being good. But I was walking on eggshells the whole time. And I kind of fooled myself into believing that once you were born, he would calm down and things would get better.
Were you ever scared for your safety?
Yes, I was a couple of times, but that was more towards the end. That's when he really started to get angry. And, when I told him I wanted a divorce, he got very, very angry and he was yelling and screaming. You were really little back then. You were 3. Yeah, you were 3 years old. And I don't know if you remember that. It was at the house upstate. And
no, I don't remember.
Yeah, he was really screaming his head off. After I talked him into selling the house, when I got the proceeds from the house, I put the money in a bank account he had no access to. And when I told him that I did that, that's when he really lost it. And, there were 2 guns in the house. So I was very afraid. But he thought I was stealing his money. And I said, no, I'm just holding it hostage. I said, you'll get your proceeds to the house once you get out. Next morning, he decided that wasn't good enough. He says, you better don't come home unless you have the money to put on the table. Otherwise, I'm going to trash this apartment with a baseball bat. And we had a baseball bat, so and knowing his level of anger, I didn't put it past him. And meanwhile, I was worried about you and the whole thing. And so anyway, talked it over with my business partner and said, yeah, I'd have to call the police because, plus there's 2 guns in the apartment. Then what do I do? So I left work and I drove directly to the police station, and they were great. They were so good. They really, not literally held my hand, but boy, they really held my hand. I think I went through an entire roll of toilet paper. I was crying so much. So I called the babysitter. I said, whatever you do not bring Abby home. I said, take her upstairs to her friend's house. I said, do not bring her back to the apartment. So get the police car. We went with 2 police cars. I stayed in one, parked a little bit down from the building. The other guys went up and they went in. I could hear them talking on the radio. And then I found out that you were in here with Sheila. I was so mad and I was so scared, and I was just sitting in the car and I was shaking, And then finally they brought him out and they put him in the police car. I ran up here and I was like, oh my God, is everybody okay? And I don't think you really had a clue what was going on, because I think Sheila kept you in the bedroom. I think you were eating or something.
I was eating chicken nuggets literally right where you're sitting right now.
I'm sorry you were here for that, actually. You don't remember it completely correctly, but...
Yeah, like bits and pieces, but not the whole thing, obviously.
It's better if you don't remember.
Yeah.
Unless it gets in your subconscious, and then,
Sometimes.
That's a problem, too.
Yeah, sometimes.
That's why it's good to talk about it, and it's good to, remind you and tell you the story again so that you can, put it all into perspective.
Yeah. Were you ever scared for my safety?
Yeah, I was not as scared for you as I was for me. I was afraid there would be a line I would cross, and then I'd be down at the police station with a black eye. You know, if I was actually still alive. I never knew, you know. I mean, I had that feeling, you know, I kept saying, oh, he won't hurt you. He wouldn't do anything. He wouldn't do anything to you. And then, you know, and that little voice would go off. Are you sure? Are you sure? And I was like, I think I'm sure. And just the fact that the little voice said, are you sure? I said, I got to get him out. Probably one of the scariest things that he ever did was one night, he said he didn't want to live anymore. So he took out one of his guns. He went into the living room and he kept turning the barrel and turning the barrel and turning the barrel. And I froze. I didn't know what to do. And you were probably an infant, you know, or maybe one-ish or two-ish. It was a horror show, and but at the same time, you know, I survived. I have not become angry or cynical or anything like that. I'm very thankful that that didn't happen to me. I can't imagine life without you, and you know, it kind of makes everything else that I went through fade away.